So Derek was a real piece of work. He's the kind of guy that you would think of if you grew up in a small town, went to church, went to youth group, just that kid who would sit in a corner with glasses and who seemed like he wasn't quite fitting in. I'm not trying to be mean when I say this. I'm just trying to illustrate to you guys and gals what this guy was like. And strangely enough, around the time of these horrific incidents that I'm about to reveal to you, Derek actually looked like the Lorax from the Dr. Seuss novels. The guy with the blonde hair, the big blonde mustache that would cover his face, you could barely see his eyeballs. And I think that he actually grew this out, Derek, to hide his face. Subconsciously, I would argue. But nonetheless, what an interesting creature, pun intended, that he was. So Derek was raised in a conservative Christian household. His parents distilled in him their religion. They homeschooled the boy. He was from Wisconsin. Until high school, they threw him into the fray, if you will. There, Derek got into drinking and partying. It was his only way of feeling free and fitting in. I think the other boys would accept him because they thought it was kind of funny. Derek getting off his rock with so much fluid running through his veins, if you will. But he became a mechanic later, never really went to college. Had a wife, eventually, that accepted him. Shockingly to the world. Had a couple kids, but of course then in his late 30s, this woman leaves him, divorces him. Derek lives with his parents for a little while, then goes out and buys a trailer in the woods with the money he received from the divorce. So his wife and him, they had a big house. I know the guy normally doesn't get the money, right? But they had a big house that they shared. He was the only worker. She would stay home with the kids. When they divorced, the equity of the house was split. So he basically got a check from the bank of like 80 or 90 grand, right? But of course, he still had to pay child support, but that's just a side note. So he wanted to be able to get a woman again. And he figured, I can't impress a woman if I'm living with my parents. So Derek is running through the dating apps, getting rejected front, left, and center. Little bots are responding with him, sending their little bikini photos, this and that. And of course, those conversations never go anywhere because they're bots. So his confidence for a moment was stimulated, then he was crashed, then stimulated again, and then crashed from just all this cycling euphoria of, oh, am I about to meet a woman finally? Just to end up with nothing. Wow. What an insane situation. This guy had a drive by his nature, and he started working out a lot too, getting his testosterone up, but he was always socially awkward. He was horrible when it came to women. He always tried to be funny, but it just came off as awkward and immature and out of touch. His confidence was lacking. He wouldn't dare look the females in the eye when he would talk to them. And at his workplace, of course, he worked with a bunch of men. Once in a while, he'd talk to an administrator who's a female, and he'd nervously talk to her and nervously try to make her laugh, and to no avail. But Derek finally attained this trailer out in the woods. thinking maybe then I will get a woman. And he tried everything. He went to the church. He went to the groups. He went to the young adult groups. He got rejected countless times. He'd get all hung up on one woman and she would reject him, leave him hanging in the friend zone or whatnot. So, I mean, at this point, he hasn't touched a woman in 2.5 years, okay? His wife and him were kind of physically separated, if you know what I mean, through the last bit of their marriage, and then she divorced him. So he went about 2.5 years without even touching a female, outside of his own mother, who would hug him on occasion when he'd go to visit them, and when he lived with her for the short time. So he buys this trailer out in the woods. Nasty thing all run up. I almost don't want to tell you what he did to it until just a little while from now, but maybe I'll tell you. I don't know what he was thinking with this initially, but you know the trailer is on cinder blocks. It's raised a couple feet up off the ground, and then you can get under it. He dug a pit under that damn trailer. Now remember, he was a mechanic. He was kind of in tune with physical labor and so forth. He tried to do all his own home projects. So he dug a hole that was about 20 feet deep. And he lined the damn thing with cement. All right. So the hole, I don't know how big it was. I mean, it was like 4 feet by 4 feet. What is that, like an 8-foot radius? It's about a 2-foot radius, about an 8-foot diameter or so. You could easily jump down in it and have plenty of room to move around. He lined it all with cement. He used steel rods and everything and lined the damn thing with cement. And I'll get to that later. In just a moment. So, he knew he couldn't meet women. He knew his job was a dead end when it came to meeting women. The women at church rejected him. Most of them were coupled up and had kids. The single ones paid no attention to him, and he probably just freaked them out a couple times. Some of them a bit too young, if you know what I mean. But he ended up realizing that he needed to have a side job where it forced him to be in the vicinity of women, where maybe women would try to pay for his services or something. So what he did is he signed up for Uber. And he bought some old rundown car that was barely meeting the guidelines for Uber. If you guys know, I think it's like 12 years old, X amount of miles. This car just barely fit those parameters. He bought it for a couple grand, and he fixed it up himself because it had problems. That's why he got it for so damn cheap. He took the little face shot thing, he made his little profile, and he started getting gigs. And in his mind, this would be his entry point to meeting women. He just imagined, you know, girls are going out to the nightclub and they'd come back tipsy and they'd be waiting outside for their Uber to come get them, you know? Horrible taste in women as far as I see it. If you want to get some chick who goes to the club. And I'm a little surprised that some guy from a conservative household would actually be willing to consider that. But that's just his prerogative, I suppose, and there's other things about him that I can't understand. So in his mind, he would go pick up these girls, maybe start conversation with them, maybe woo them, and maybe become friends, get the number, and you know where he wants to go from there. Ultimately, he wanted to find a wife, okay? Horrible places to look, but he wanted to find a wife. I mean, in his mind, he could go to the grocery stores. He could go to the library. He could go around. He lived outside of the city a little bit, but he wanted to get work within the city. So He got a couple gigs. They were guys, they were women that were generously increased in size or whatever you want to call it. Not really his type. Older women. But then he started accepting gigs closer to downtown at a certain time of day. And to his surprise, there was a greater influx of women. One girl that he picked up, her name was Jenica. He picked her up after her night out, and it was about a 2-mile drive to her house. She lived in one of those duplexes with a bunch of college students or whatever. Derek was looking at her through the mirror, like his little rearview mirror. She's sitting in the back on her phone. Phone's just glowing in her face. This cute little skinny chick with glasses and tied back hair, little dress. I mean, kind of looked like a librarian chick or something. And she's just sitting there in the back with her phone glowing in her face. And Derek, wide eyes, just can't believe what just stepped into his car. Like, to him, she's like sent from God or something. And he gets nervous. And he starts heading toward the address with the GPS. And he's kind of fidgeting with the steering wheel. Just almost runs a red light. Because he's nervous. Doesn't say a thing to this girl. And is just his mustache is covering his face. You can barely see his eyes. But he just keeps glancing into that mirror when he's trying to drive. And he's starting to get a little red and sweaty. Okay? Jenica is terrified. She takes notice to this within the first minute of her 5-minute car drive and almost asks him to just drop her off so she can get out. But she doesn't. He drives past her house, gets back on the freeway, and starts driving toward his trailer. Yeah. Jenica, it's not on the freeway, and he's nervous as hell, looking into the mirror. I'm sorry. I must have gotten to the wrong set of mind. I thought I was going home. And then he turns back off the freeway, drives to her house, drives past her house again, and then because of her reaction, he finally reverses the car and drops her off. Oh, God. This was only found out later when Jenica was interviewed. This strange encounter. And this is how they found him. Through Uber, through the Uber app. There was a couple more incidents. He tried to talk to one, made the girl nervous as hell. Asked her what is she doing that night. Asked her if she wanted to see his pocket knife collection. He would just do anything to try to get them over to his damn trailer. But to no avail. Somewhere down this hideous line, Derek ended up attaining a few women. Now, this wasn't during the Uber ride. I think what he did is he would drop them off. He'd know where they lived. And then, like, weeks later, he'd be stalking them. He'd be hanging outside in the car, watching them get out, figuring out where they go to work. He'd follow them. He ended up pinching a couple of these girls. Now, by pinching, I mean napping them, okay? And I believe he did this by orchestrating his little scheme of knowing the insides and outs of their life, because he'd follow him after he dropped him off of Uber, all right? Maybe that's what his intention was all along. I don't know. Maybe he knew. He was like, well, this is how I know where they live. And I don't have to try to follow them from a grocery store or something because I give them a ride with Uber to their damn house. I don't really know, but he ended up catching another girl This is the third one that he caught. Stories started showing up on his local news. These women have gone missing. All sorts of cases being made, this and that, and it starts hitting a little close to home to him. A description was sent out of the guy. His mom saw it. There's nothing like that frickin' mustache. Derek shaves it off, puts on glasses, starts losing a ton of weight. He started eating nicotine gum or whatever and just fasting like crazy. He lost about 40 pounds. He was never that big. I mean, he was a bit muscular like me, but I'm 6'4". Had a bit of a gut, and he lost his gut, trimmed up his face. He looked different in the face if he lose weight. He shaved up. I mean, he did all these measures, and his mom, it kind of raised an eyebrow. But somehow the detectives were making their way closer to him in their searches, and he felt the case was coming on to him. I don't know if he had any direct reason of thinking this. A lot of the stuff hasn't been revealed. But he knew that they were sharpening up their case here. That they were probably going to find the guy. Okay? They're talking about DNA samples, all this other stuff. They speculated there was somebody who was pinching these women. So what he ended up doing after having a girl at his house for a couple days, non-consensually, obviously, her little body was found thrown over a bridge in the nearby town. He chained her up, undressed her, put anchors from boats, those 20-pound anchors, 30-pound anchors you can get at Walmart. He wrapped the chains around her neck, around her arms, around her legs, so you pretty much make a harness of chains. And he tied these anchors to her, and he wrapped her skin tight in garbage bags, so that when her body's rotting at the bottom of the lake or whatever it was, I think it was a river, but it was a pretty deep river, probably 15 feet deep. He wrapped her tight with these bags so that when her skin starts rotting off, it's not going to float to the surface. They're going to find samples all over the place. And he figured by the time somebody finds her, her body's going to be so decomposed that none of his evidence is going to be on her. I'm sure that he wiped her up with acid and everything else. Probably put her in his bathtub, filled it with acid, left her there a couple days, just trying to get all the residue off, because I'm sure he had his residue in and on her. As disgusting as that might be. Like I said, this guy, there's something off about him. So he chained this girl up, and he threw her over that damn bridge at 3 a.m, splashes, and then sinks to the bottom, right? Days later, this chick was found. Some kayakers who would frequent that river, they thought they caught a glimpse of something kind of floating up while walking by. Sometimes if the dirt in the water settled and the sun's just right, and you're wearing those glasses that kind of take away the reflection of the water that fishermen use, you can see deep down in there. These guys saw something, and they knew that these girls were missing. They call up the cops, they send over a little scuba diver or whatever, they retrieve it, and sure enough, it's this chick. Now, Derek sees this. He knows, he's been keeping an eye on the area. They didn't reveal it on the news, but every day, every night, he drives by where he threw her off the bridge. He knows that they're not gonna, report it locally once they find her, because they're still gonna try to make their case and catch the guy. So he's driving by daily, nightly, just drives by, see if there's any activity. And one of those evenings, he must have seen the little area quarantined off with caution tape, all that, couple cops, and he saw that they were getting something, and he knew right then that he was done, that he was cooked. That very night, Derek got in his car. I think he premeditated this just in case if he had to do it. He chained himself to the damn seat with similar chains that he wrapped that girl in. There was a little bridge in town, not the one where he threw her off, but the road kind of goes around and then there's a big bank and it goes into a lake. He always figured if he had to, he could drive as fast as car goes and fly off that little hill into the lake, and he figured he'd get enough speed and momentum where his car would end up being fully submerged in the water and it would sink. So he chained himself to the damn seat, rolled down all of his windows, got crunk, if you will, with strong drink, went about 70, 80 miles an hour down this 30-mile-per-hour road because there's that big curve that you're not supposed to speed over because your car's going to fly over the damn thing. But obviously that was his intent. Went about 70, 80 miles an hour and just flies over and boom, smashes into the water. The car's like 30 feet out into the lake now, 40 feet out into the lake, just with all the momentum just... And then, of course, it stops, and it starts sinking. Boom, 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 boom. And he takes his last breaths. And he's gone. The water filling his lungs, and he's gone. They ended up getting a warrant. Obviously, they found his carcass. They knew what happened. They saw the car scene. They investigated, put two and two together, found his DNA on the girl. They knew it was him. They ended up searching through his trailer. He was pretty good at hiding the evidence. There wasn't much evidence, but the other two chicks were still missing. What a heinous ending this story has. So, they don't find much evidence in the house. They quarantine the damn thing off. Their investigation ensues for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And from the depths, and they already looked under it, you know? They didn't see anything. Because he had it covered. He would put a big wood panel over it, and he'd put dirt all over it at the bottom, in the dirt level, where he had his little pit that he dug. They ended up finding the damn pit because a putrid smell started coming out of it after about a week or two. The dogs find it. The dogs make a ruckus. It was kind of in the corner. And you could even crawl over it and you couldn't really tell because he used a really heavy, I don't know if it was wood or a really heavy steel plate or something to cover the whole damn top, and then he put all the dirt over it to make it just even with the ground, and you couldn't even tell. And he must have did this maybe that night. I don't really know. Where he decided to do the thing that he did to himself. Putrid smell coming out. The dogs are making a ruckus in the corner under the trailer. Detectives end up pulling the shaft off. Horrid smells coming out of this damn pit. They shine their lights down in there, and they see the bodies of 2 young women. These women are just sort of like sprawled up against the corner. One's on the ground, curled up into fetal position. Skin pale as a ghost, just rotting flesh. It just smells hideous. Feces and urine all over the floor. Their fingernails and fingers all torn up and just blood running down the wall. They were trying to crawl out of the damn thing. But the walls were pretty smooth, cement that he lined it with. So they couldn't really get out. Now, to my understanding, they must have passed a couple days after he unalived himself. And maybe the detectives could have got him still when they're still alive. I don't know. But he covered him up and left him there to die, to rot. The bodies were pulled out of the shaft. And, the families were horrified. The town was devastated. What a disgusting situation this was. And those 3 women, my heart goes out to them. But, yeah, I mean, that's how this whole thing went. That's how it transpired. If you're out there dealing with strangers, be careful. Carry some pepper spray at least. That's what I do. Carry some pepper spray, okay? I mean, yeah, I have a hand cannon as well. But you guys use your own discretion, and gals. But anyway, if you will, yeah, these videos are a bit hard to tell, but it's important to hear them because it gains us perspective. You got to be ready. It prepares us for the real world. Sometimes things just aren't what this. I mean, they said this guy was a nice guy, you know? He was a nice guy, okay? But anyway, if you will, like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Let me know what you think about this style of video, true crimes, this and that, crime stories, this and that. Become a patron if you want to support these videos, or a channel member. Really appreciate you all who support the channels. Blessings to those who support the channels through Patreon or channel membership. Links in the description below. And I'll see you all tomorrow with more chilling tales from the Iceman.